Well.
The fuck you mean you don't know DJ Mark B? You better preach it. Say that. Say that. Oh, you better go now.
Welcome to Preach Care Preach. We're Rashad. We are the prophets. Here's another episode, another sermon coming at you from 12 Ounce Sports, Dingo TV, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere else you can find us. Welcome to the show. What's going on, Rashad?
What it do, bro? Got our special guest in the building as well, man.
And without further ado, we have Ross Jackson, editor of the Canal Street Chronicles. You can find them at Saints CSC on Twitter. He's also the host of the Locked In Network for the Saints. I listen to my Locked In Vikings. I listen to the Locked In Draft. So this is right up my alley. If you are a Saints fan, please check that out. Welcome to the show, Ross.
Hey, brothers. Appreciate you letting me be here, man. Thank you for welcoming me in. Very excited to get to chop it up with y'all. Hope that y'all are doing well, staying safe. Everybody's good, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Quarantine radio.
For real.
You know how I go. So before we, I guess, get started off, we want to, first kind of like dive in on the Saints draft this past weekend. You had actually, I want to say, not really a surprising pick, but a pick that I didn't really see coming in the first round. So I'm gonna let you talk about it first. How did you like Cesar Ruiz from Michigan?
Yeah, man, it's funny. Like I consistently made a lot of jokes leading up to the draft about like, you could talk about all these wide receivers and linebackers you want, but Sean's going to go out there and take an offensive lineman. And it was kind of my way of just like messing with people and picking on people and everything. And then lo and behold, Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan center ends up being the number 24 overall selection and their top selection in this draft. And so it was a little surprising, a little shocking, just in terms of the fact that, there's such a big need at linebacker. Patrick Queen, a home state guy, was there on the board. Kenneth Murray had just gone off the pick right before, but Jordan Love was still on the board too, and a lot of people connected the Saints to Jordan Love. We all kind of knew that wasn't necessarily going to be the case, though. But not a lot of people talking about Cesar Ruiz out there being the guy to the Saints. And I always anticipated him being off the board at 23 to the Patriots. But then when the Patriots traded back, that ended up keeping him on the board for the Saints at 24. So it was a bit of a shocker for people, but there's value there, and you can see the path to the roster actually makes a lot of sense for him.
Yeah, I agree with that, man, because they needed some offensive line help, so it made perfect sense. But I was trying to push Jordan Love there as the heir apparent to Drew Brees.
Yeah, it made perfect sense. And I mean, yes, there's absolutely a need there, particularly on the interior. As you mentioned, they got demolished there by those Vikings you mentioned earlier during the playoffs in that wild card game. Shifting Everson Griffin and Linval Joseph to the inside was just a great game plan. And the Saints weren't able to keep up with that type of athleticism on the interior. And Cesar Ruiz, who's extremely powerful, who's very quick and very smart too, which is one of the things that the Saints have complimented so much about him. He's going to be a great addition for the Saints and a big boost in that interior offensive line where they really needed that help.
Where do you think Ruiz is going to play? Because I know you had drafted McCoy last year out of Texas. So is he going to play center, guard? What anything you hearing so far?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because Eric McCoy came in last year and took over as the starting center and did very, very well. Played there in place of Max Unger, so he had some big-time shoes to fill at that position. But he did it very, very well. But the thing about it is that the Saints aren't married to the idea of McCoy at center. They're interested and perfectly willing, and they've made it publicly known that they're perfectly willing to shift him over to guard, which is kind of putting Larry Warford on a also very public hot seat, which is a little different than what we're used to seeing from the Saints organization, which is usually very sort of close to the vest, not very public about those kinds of things. But they're outwardly talking about Larry Warford's got to compete. So if you see that they were wanting Larry Warford to compete, you look at the fact that Eric McCoy is somebody that they've mentioned that they're comfortable shifting to guard. They're not married to him at center. That leaves open the idea that Cesar Ruiz would shift into to that center position and be that signal caller, which is, first of all, really, really great for him because he gets a year at least working with Drew Brees. So if he does have that football IQ or with him having that football IQ, that continues to grow with him. And then you have somebody that's extremely smart at that center position after Drew Brees that can be that sort of Max Unger diagnosing coverages, identifying the mic, setting up the offensive line, and sort of sort of dictating what the defense is going to be doing to the rest of the offensive line. So you don't lose out on that communication as long as Cesar Ruiz's football IQ translates the way that it has from college into the pros.
Now we talk about your next pick, Zach Bond, who I think we had him like did we draft him in our first round on our own prospect draft? So
yeah, I think we had him going first round, man. He was in my opinion, one of the top prospects. I thought he was going to go off the board a little bit earlier.
If he didn't go in the third round, you're talking about value picks, which the draft is all about value. Is where you get guys at. So I thought this was a home run pick. I mean, I don't really know where like the Saints going to play him, but I mean, he's versatile. He can play really, I mean, edge on 3-4 stand up, whatever you want to do, he probably can do it. So, thoughts on getting him at a like kind of a steal, because I thought he was first round draft pick.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know I always saw Zach Bond as sort of this bottom of the first, top of the second round guy, and I had my sort of concerns about him at that place. If a team was going to draft him specifically to come in and be an edge rusher, 6'2", 237, he's going to get bullied by offensive linemen playing off the edge, unless it's in a 3-4 defense. But when you're playing in a majority 4-3 or 4-2-5, like what the Saints play, and you're expected to sit there and put your hand in the dirt, you're going to get bowled over by some of those guys, especially in the NFC South too, where they're continuing to load up on those offensive linemen to protect their quarterbacks. Some of the new commodities in Teddy Bridgewater and Tom Brady, of course. And so with all of that, I was a little concerned about him being that high to the Saints at 24, because there was some talk about Zach Bond potentially being an option at 24 early on. And that was my one concern with him. But him coming in at 74 is a very, very different place, very, very different position. Right. And so the Saints actually spent about an hour trying to trade up to get him. They started at different places within the top of the second round. They had started early that day, trying to trade up into the early second round to be able to grab him, and fail after fail after fail in terms of trying to do that. But he also continued to tumble. And then finally, they end up being able to get this trade done with, I believe it was Cleveland. They get up to 74. They give up a future third, which doesn't really matter to them because, well, first of all, they've never cared about future picks. As long as there's an NFL next season, the Saints will trade future picks. They have no problem with that. But they do have a compensatory third rounder that's expected because of the Teddy Bridgewater signing in Carolina. And so, they didn't have to give up a lot to go and get him. And their plan with him actually isn't to use him that much as an edge rusher. They want to play him at Sam, Mike, or Will. Like, they want to use him in that 4-3 off-ball linebacker type of role and get him involved in coverage, because he did grade very well. If you look at the analytics sites, he didn't really drop back into coverage a ton, 195 snaps in coverage. He spent a lot of time being one of those guys that was just coming off the edge, a stand-up defensive lineman, a stand-up pass rusher. But he graded very well in coverage. They really worked with him on it at the Senior Bowl in particular, and they liked it. They liked what he showed, and so they want to bring him in and then get him transitioned a little bit to that 4-3 off-ball linebacker, which he seems pretty excited about as well.
And before we move on, Rashad, our boy finally found a home. He found it in New Orleans. Jabu is with the Saints.
Let's go. Let's go, yo. I'm so pumped about that.
We were saying this all the time. We was like, man, somebody's going to get a steal because he don't have to be a starter. And we were saying Pittsburgh would be a great place behind Big Ben.
Yeah.
Saints would be a good one behind Breeze. And any old quarterback had one, Jameis is right there for the taking for nothing. And
yeah.
He's getting paid.
It's only for $1 million.
Oh my gosh! My team for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, for real. 1.1 million. He's making less this entire year than he made per week on his 5th-year option at Tampa Bay.
Saints playing chess right now.
I mean, Taysom Hill's making way more than James.
Way more. He got 16 guaranteed.
It's pretty impressive for a guy.
Yep.
All right. So let's go to our move into who we think, combining with the draft, also with the offseason in a totality thing about who was the best team so far. Obviously, it's on paper. They still have to go to camp, and whenever that happens, whenever it opened up. But Rashad, we'll start with you. Who do you think this offseason won the offseason already?
Number one is, I'm gonna be the dead horse just because everybody talks them up and then they let you down. But you got to go Cleveland Browns, man. You got to go Cleveland Browns. They did the Odell stuff last year. Everybody thought, they're going to win the division, things like that. And then now this year, yep. I have in the playoffs. I didn't have a Super Bowl, but that was some of the talk. Then now this year, they're going flashy again. You already have Njoku. But you bring in Austin Hooper on a 4-year deal, worth $44, but guaranteed $23 million. So that's not a bad pickup because I got to throw in the part about they added a new coach, Stefanski, and he prefers 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. So, with having Odell and Jarvis, now you have Hooper and Njoku. So his system will be able to flourish. Also having Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Yep. So, that kind of works with his style. Hopefully Baker can take that next step because I have him as my dynasty QB. I'm not trying to win 3 fantasy matchups this year. I'm trying to get to that fantasy championship, man. So hopefully that works out. And then a second big addition was they stole Conklin from Tennessee. I think he's a 3-year, $42 million, but I think it's guaranteed $30 million. So that's huge for their O-line because Baker struggled with protection all year. And once you didn't trade for Trent Williams, you kind of had to go get something. So they got Conklin from Tennessee, who played a huge role with what they're doing with Tannehill and Derrick Henry last season. So I think that's a great pickup. Both of your O-line. And a sneaky pickup that wouldn't make the headlines but could be key for Baker's development is Case Keenum because he's already been under Stefanski. He knows the play calling, the ins and outs of his system, how he wants to run it. So I think, it's not it's a kind of cheap deal. It's more than what James is getting. I mean, he agreed to a 3-year deal worth 18, but it's $10 million guaranteed. So that's for a backup QB, that's really not too bad. But at the same time, it's more about investing. Baker's on his rookie deal, so when you bring in Keenum for this kind of money, it all kind of balances out. And you need somebody who can come in and teach Baker, the ins and outs of that system and things like that. So I think those 3 moves, I mean, they made some smaller moves like, Carl Joseph at safety and stuff like that. They got Andrew Billings, the D tackle. So, you got small moves like that, but I think that big 3 is what mainly looks good for them. Then on the draft side, you got Jedrick Willis, Grant Delpit, the LSU Browns at this point. You got Greedy Williams, Landry, Odell, now Delpit. So you got the LSU Browns up there. So and they got Jacob Phillips too for LSU. So, I mean, the LSU Browns.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah. There's something about that. There's something about that Ohio Louisiana pipeline. It does run both ways, but it is an interesting thing for sure.
Yeah.
So I think the Browns are definitely one of the winners of the offseason.
That Conklin and that Willis move, like people don't understand those 2 tackles. Kevin Stefanski was struggling this whole time with Minnesota with no offensive line. Now he got 2 good ones already with I think Zeitler in the middle, guard, and you have Treader. Like these guys, like Browns might have a top 5 O-line like really really quickly.
Yeah, almost overnight because a free agent. I mean, the rule is pretty much draft 1, sign 1, trade for 1, and they kind of almost did that, so it kind of works.
Yeah.
All right, Ross, what you got?
I'm going to start off with somebody actually within the NFC South division. I'm not going to go with the Saints, though, of course. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man. That offseason that they've had is just absolutely wild. Even if you don't necessarily like Tampa Bay, perhaps maybe you don't like Tom Brady, Tampa Bay, I guess they're calling themselves now. It's just a wild, wild offseason. And it has been really across the NFC South sort of as a whole. But what they were able to do in terms of, getting Bruce Arians, the quarterback that he did want to work with, because he didn't have a ton of patience for Jameis, unfortunately. So, you get a guy that can potentially win him his Super Bowl, right? Like in terms of what Bruce Arians is thinking. To be able to get Rob Gronkowski back paired up with Tom Brady too is just it's honestly a little ridiculous if I'm being completely honest. I'm not the biggest fan of who I think Rob Gronkowski is going to be in the 2020 season, right? We're not talking about the Rob Gronkowski of old. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But just in terms of having, a veteran guy that has a rapport with Tom Brady that can train up a guy like OJ Howard, everything like that. Like there's still some value there in terms of that. I think that he's probably going to keep his knees under him for maybe a couple of weeks at most, but still it's a pretty good move for them. And then to be able to walk away in this draft with Tristan Wirfs, where they were able to get him, they had to move up a pick in order to do it, but it didn't cost them anything too crazy to do that. And some of the other guys they added them really, really late, but the wide receiver Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota, to add him along with Mike Evans as well as Chris Godwin, that's just that's a hell of a receiving core and a lot of options for Tom Brady there. And, then they get their running back there as well and everything. So they've done a really, really good job in terms of what they've been able to do this offseason. I'm still a little concerned about that secondary. They got a lot of work to do with that secondary, particularly in the NFC South. But I do like what they've done so far in terms of getting Bruce Arians a little bit closer to his time.
I would also say about the secondary, they did find their honey badger in the draft, Antoine Winfield Jr., for Todd Bowles. So, maybe that pairing right there together can do a little damage.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point. Yeah, he was a fantastic addition for them too. And somebody else that could have gone much earlier in the draft. We talk about Zach Bond being somebody that could have gone earlier, and then they ended up picking up late. Like a couple of these NFC South teams found some pretty good wins. And I would say there were a good bit of steals throughout the draft in this one for sure. Yeah.
One thing about the NFC South, real quick, man. One thing about the NFC South, you do need secondary because everybody has at least 2 elite receivers, so you got to stop somebody.
That's right. That's such a big part of it. And that was one of the things that, like, at the beginning, when it was just free agency, I felt really good about where the Saints were because the Saints were the only ones in the division with a secondary, one that could sometimes be problematic, but at least they had a secondary in place. Now you're starting to see other teams get their pieces together and everything because even, Carolina going out there and getting Jeremy Chin in their draft is still a huge addition and just a huge upgrade from Eric Reed. As much as I like Eric Reed and respect everything that he does on and off the field, Jeremy Chin's a humongous upgrade there. And that's somebody that I'm really excited to see too. But yeah, you're right, man. That secondary is a big part of it. And Tampa Bay got a piece, but they still have a little bit of work to do there.
And the Saints went out and got Jenkins, and you added Sanders on the opposite side of the ball. So they're making improvements on both sides to compete offensively and defensively.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fun division.
I'm gonna go with the LA Chargers. So
that's a good pick.
I was sitting there thinking about who do their team remind me of, and when you kind of think about it, if Justin Herbert is okay, I'm not a big Justin Herbert fan, but if he is the guy, let's say he's just solid, he's a solid quarterback on the rise, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at his defense, we're talking about the Seattle scheme. So this is Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill. You had Bosa and Ingram. Bobby Wagner. They traded up for their Bobby Wagner and Kenneth Murray. You got Derwin James, and you have Nasir Adderley, who is their Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. Then on top of that, they had Sherman and who was the other guy? Browner. I think it's Brandon Browner or something like that. But you got Chris Harris Jr. You got Desmond Keenan. You got
Hayward. Casey Hayward.
So you're talking about a loaded team on defense. They finally got their quarterback on the defense in Kenneth Murray, who can serve that side. Like this team on defense is just it's a stack. Now, yes, they traded a second and a third to move up in the first, but I mean that defense is now whole. Like you got a linebacker now it is whole. And you brought in Levon Joseph from the Vikings who can be at run stopper. So you got a guy who can command the double teams in the middle, with Bosa and Ingram, who are at least top 15 pass rushers. Bosa probably top 5.
Mm-hmm.
But now you have everything you need on defense. So you play in the Chiefs. You have to deal with the up and coming Raiders with their offense they added this offseason, as well as the Denver Broncos. So you have to be able to stop somebody, and obviously the first team to stop is the Chiefs. And then on offense, I mean, they kind of complement their free agency by went defense free agency, drafting offense. They got KJ Hill from Ohio State. They drafted another receiver earlier with Justin Herbert. Got a running back from UCLA, Josh Kelly. So they did everything you're supposed to do as far as how to build this team. And even with Tyrod Taylor, who I think is a solid QB and can get you 9 to 10 wins, especially with this roster.
Mm-hmm.
Like this Chargers team really, they really could be in the Super Bowl next year, and it wouldn't shock me.
Right. I got to tell you, man, Josh Kelly is one of my favorite pickups in their draft. I think Josh Kelly is somebody that a lot of people have slept on. That is somebody that people don't talk about enough. And the thing about it is
that
watch
the Pac-10, man. Well,
man, nobody watches the Pac-10. You're absolutely right. But like, it's so dope. It's so dope that he gets to stay home. First of all, that's just awesome because he's coming out of UCLA and everything. That's pretty dope. But then also, like, this is a guy that isn't the flashiest running back. He's not going to be their Melvin Gordon, but I think he can be more than what Melvin Gordon was because he's somebody that can run out of the backfield. He's somebody that can catch out of the backfield, and he's a fantastic pass blocker and just a wholesome dude. Like, I don't know if y'all have heard any interviews or anything with him, but if you get the chance, like, check out an interview with Josh Kelly and then just be ready to finish listening and then go and do a good deed. Like, that's who Josh Kelly is. Like, it's an incredible thing, man. I love that dude. And I'm so glad that he got selected at a place where he gets to stay home and do like that. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, that Chargers, man, that's a good one. Like you said, their whole thing is competing with Kansas City, and when you have Mahomes and all those weapons, you gotta slow it down some kind of way. So by building your defense and having Tyrod, who won't lose you games,
right?
So and like you said, Herbert, I'm not sure if he's the guy either. I mean,
I don't know.
What else?
We'll find out.
What else could they
right.
do? What else could they do at this point? They let Rivers go. They could have probably brought Rivers back for one more year. But if you think Herbert's the guy, you got to roll with it. He has the same thing, the Pac-12 ties. He's used to playing in that California area, so hopefully it works out for him.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go to my second team, man. I'm going to the AFC South. And I just mentioned this guy's name, Phillip Rivers. I'm going with the Colts. The Buckner trade, I like that move. They're building their D line up slowly, kind of under the radar. You got Buckner now. You have Sheldon Day, Stewart, Autry. So you have a pretty sneaky defensive line. And you kind of pair that with Darius Leonard. They improved the secondary some. They added Kels guy. He's kind of washed, but Rhodes is still a veteran corner. So you get, for 1 year, $5 million, you really can't beat that. I mean, you got Rivers there, 1 year, $25 million. So you got a vet QB who can make some things happen. I think he hasn't won a Super Bowl. I think Rivers has a winning pedigree. So hopefully this year he can kind of make a playoff push. I think with what they've done, they could probably get 9 or 10 wins, maybe win a division. But Rivers for 1 year, $25 million. Like I said, Xavier Rhodes, the Buckner trade, Sheldon Day on the defensive line. They got what's his name on the O-line? Anthony Costanzo. That was a good ad. So I like what they did for agency wise. Then when it comes to the draft, you got another receiver to pair with the always injured T.Y. Hilton. I mean, you're hoping Paris Campbell takes a step, but they got Michael Love.
Right.
Yeah. So you got Michael Pittman Jr. from USC.
Man,
so I think that'll be good. Yeah. I think that'll be really good for Rivers because he likes to air it out, and I think Pittman can go get some of those deep balls. So I like that. You already have Marlon Mack. You got your 1-2 punch for Jonathan Taylor. They got Julian Blackman out of Utah for the secondary. And then one of my favorite picks, Jacob Eason, 4th round. So, he can learn from Rivers. He can learn from Rivers and Jacoby on how to be a pro because Eason only has really one true year of tape recently because his first year at Georgia was, he's a freshman. Wasn't the greatest year. Got hurt. Fromm beat him out. Now you have to wait and transfer. You have a pretty good year. Big arm, can make all the throws. I think if he sits for 2 years, by his 3rd year, similar to – I'm not saying he's going to beat Aaron Rodgers, but if you sit for 2 years like Rodgers did with your arm and his talent, he could potentially be the heir apparent. And I think the Colts have a pretty good roster. They made some good moves on both sides and draft and free agency-wise, so they could be a contender in the AFC this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good pick, man. I like that Jonathan Taylor pick in particular. I'm excited to see him in the league. I'm hoping that the wear and tear and everything at Wisconsin doesn't cost him anything in the pros. But with this offseason being the way that it is, he gets a lot of rest up time before he hits like actual physical contact and everything. So, but I'm excited to see him there and what that means for that running back group too, because you mentioned the dynamic duo between him and Marlon Mack. As Marlon Mack is somebody that can catch out of the backfield and everything. Me coming from New Orleans and watching Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram for 2 years, like having that type of 1-2 punch can really, really be something you take advantage of and that can elevate you. Are they going to be that? I can't say that, but just having that type of dynamic duo right there is just invaluable. And I love Julian Blackman too, just incredibly versatile in the backfield. In the secondary, can play anywhere you want him to. Like that's a fantastic thing, and a special teamer too, which is always important. And so I really like their draft.
Hashtag Pac-12.
Man, we
That's
giving
that Pac-12.
Pac-12 a whole lot of love.
I know,
man.
right? We sure are. It's about at least somebody doing it
Somebody
that ain't their
got
mama.
yeah, somebody got good stuff. That's funny.
I'll jump to I'll jump to a division mate for the very first one we talked about. We talked about the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens were a fantastic team last year all together. Lamar Jackson, a well-deserved MVP award. Until they stumbled against the Titans inexplicably in the playoffs. They were pretty incredible all season. I was just talking about Mark Ingram and everything and what he's been able to do there. Big trust, get that run game popping over there. And so I like them already coming into this season as a team that was going to be a team that could repeat its success. But then they go out there and then they make a trade to add Calais Campbell for peanuts, and then they ship off Hayden Hurst. And then get, what was it, a second round pick back from Atlanta for that they turned into more, And so they were just really working that sort of newcomer or working that free agent market, that free agent trade market really, really well. And then for the most part, they really just focused on re-signing their guys and keeping their team together. Which when you're doing, when you have a team that is already successful, that becomes a big part of the focus of your offseason is just maintaining the communication and maintaining the familiarity of the guys that you already have in the facility. And they did a really good job at that, adding a piece like Calais Campbell, getting a great piece back for Hayden Hurst. And then they end up drafting guys. They basically drafted everybody that I liked in this draft, which was kind of wild. Like I was sitting there and I was watching and I was like, oh, this person's still on the board. Here comes Baltimore. And they would take him. They drafted Patrick Queen, so they add Patrick Queen. He gets to go exactly where he wanted to go. He wanted to end up in Baltimore. And so he was really glad to end up there. He now gets to be the next linebacker in a long lineage of fantastic linebacker play in a Baltimore Ravens uniform. He gets to stay in the purple too, which I think matches his aesthetic. Then they add J.K. Dobbins there, which does a little bit of what we were just talking about with creating a dynamic duo, right? Yeah, absolutely. What did they get at 55 in the draft? This wild to be able to get him at that point, and then to be able to add him with Mark Ingram, as if this offense needed more weapons. They added him with Mark Ingram. And I think eventually it'll be a similar situation to what you saw in New Orleans, where they'll operate in tandem for a little while, and then eventually J.K. Dobbins will probably become the head guy there. But just a fantastic, outlook in terms of what it is that they wanted to create. Then they picked up two fantastic defensive tackles too, shoring up the interior defensive line with Justin Madubuike out of Texas A&M, and then also grabbing Broderick Washington, who I thought was one of my sleepers at that position. So they continue to add to the defense. They add Malik Harrison, out of Ohio State, who's just a downhill thumper. Like, he'll mess you up.
Another steal.
Yeah, they got him at 98, so they got him just before the top 100 went out. Like, he was somebody that I often saw second, third round as somebody that would end up going there, or early third round at the latest. But one of the picks that I like a ton for this team is that they continue to address and add receiving options for Lamar Jackson, and getting Devin Duvernay. That just run after catch ability. He can play inside and out. He's got a little bit of contested catch in him as well. He's just a rude dude out on the field. And I like that a lot for that team, and to be able to complement those wide receivers that they do have, particularly Hollywood Brown, who's a burner. And then you have that arm strength with Lamar Jackson. And now you give him another downfield target that can also take a slant and turn it upfield, and produce in the run after catch game. And then they get a sure-handed guy in James Prochet out of SMU that could be a little bit more of that possession guy that can play X, that can play, in the slot as well. And so I really like their draft, man, in particular. And I just love the fact that their focus was, let's keep the in-house guys here, maintain the success that we've already established for ourselves, and then add young pieces to this core. And they did a really great job of that.
You mentioned the receivers. I thought how great they were not to address receiver early, because I think it's not fair for a guy like Lamar Jackson or any quarterback of that nature to not have the weapons. We look at Sam Darnold, Jets. I mean, come on, help the brother.
Right.
Baker Mayfield got all the tools in the world. Josh Allen now has Stephon Diggs. They got a running back in the draft, another Pac-12 guy, Moss. So it's and you want to see Lamar Jackson. Yes, he has Andrews and Hollywood Brown, but as far as passing, what else do we have? And
right,
you love to see the Ravens not go early in the round, go get a T. Higgins, but wait and get these receivers on the back end and build your team everywhere else. And now, because you still a run first team, so you don't need elite receivers, but you need receivers who can get open and make plays.
Yeah, and Devin Duvernay is a fantastic example of that. Somebody that gives you, I would say safely 70%, 80% of what maybe a tier 2 guy might have given you. I'm not talking about like the top guys that were like, the top 3 or anything like that, but he gives you around 70, 80% of maybe some of those tier 2, tier 3 guys, and is fantastic at creating separation. And he's going to give Lamar Jackson those windows to throw to. There was no reason to attack this position early for them. They knew exactly the type of receiver that they wanted, and they were able to get one of each, honestly. And then also continue to add to their offensive line, too, because they got an absolute mauler in Ben Bredesen.
Yeah, they needed Beyond retire.
They needed that.
You draft 2 guards, I hope one will be good.
That's it.
Can't beat it. And my last team would be another team that took a quarterback, the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
I think the AFC East as a whole did pretty good. But to me, the Dolphins, when you have so many picks, I mean, it's hard not to, at least on paper, be terrible at the draft. I think this whole time we're talking about the draft process. Do the Chargers and the Dolphins, do they have to trade up to get these guys? And I kept saying you don't have to, because who else is going to come up and get these quarterbacks? So right. I think getting Tua at 5 instead of 3 is I mean, as far as value, I mean, it's great, because why trade up and waste other assets to get a guy you can get at 5? I know we was talking about, like, we wanted Herbert to go to Miami and Tua to go to Chargers, because, like, we rather had Tua with the LA Chargers. But I was like, there's no way Miami passed up on them, and they didn't. So I thought getting Tua was great. But Austin Jackson, who, I had a couple of tackles that ranked higher than him, but you did fit the need, and for that scheme, he might be the better option. Anyway, and then at the end of the round, they got a corner, which you add to Byron Jones, and you add to Xavier Howard. I mean, the third corner is going to be great. He's a first-round draft pick. So I'm going to try to pronounce his name, but if I get it wrong, it's all good. So Noah.
It's all good.
Benefo. Close enough. He knows what I'm talking about. But he knows that from Auburn, so he played a lot of elite receivers. And he's not going to have that role to be, you have to shut down the best guy. You don't have to. Last year you did in college. This year you get the third best guy. So I think that's pretty good. And then as the draft got deeper, you started seeing like good picks down the line. And like I said, with all these picks, they traded up, traded down, traded back in the first round to add more pieces, and the who package traded up to get Jordan Love. They crazy, but anyway,
man.
Yeah.
Can we talk for a second about the worst draft in the NFL?
It was crazy.
I'm about to say I'm right there with you on that one. But to get Weaver, who early in the process was supposed to be a first, second round guy, get him later on. Got Roquan Davis. That D line with the Kyle Van Noys and the Lawsons, like these, they coming for the quarterback. Like this defense can go from the bottom to the top, and just like the Chargers, like it can go real fast. Like I can see the Dolphins. I wouldn't say win the division, not go that far, but if they made a wild card, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
They'll challenge.
Yeah, should.
They'll challenge. That's for sure.
But
You're on the rise for sure.
If you want to talk about the worst,
bro. Okay, can we just talk? Here's my whole thing. My man Aaron Rodgers goes on the Pat McAfee show and says, we don't really take that many skill position guys, so it'd be cool if they add a couple of skill position guys, and they're.
Dang, went out.
Dry.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. My bad. They just kind of left him out to dry like that, man. Like that was just wild. That was just crazy.
If the first day, okay, they already shocked us with the Jordan Love situation. So
right.
Like, okay, day two, second round, third round, it's fine. Nobody. Then to go through 4, 5, 6, and 7 and still getting. I mean, I see where they're going. I see what they're trying to do. And I'm glad they're trying to do this, which is ride Rodgers and get him out of here, and let's go with Jordan Love. As a Viking fan, I love that. Get Aaron Rodgers out of here. That's the best thing to do. But they went offensive line. They want to go running back heavy with Aaron Jones. And they got Dylan. And I think it's kind of like they want to be the 49ers so bad. Like Matt LaFleur want to be Kyle Shanahan.
Matt LaFleur, man.
Yeah.
Because he drafted a fullback early.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Josiah DeGuara. That's the dude that I was like, yeah, y'all just drafted Jay Sternberger a second time.
Yeah, that's some Kyle Shanahan stuff right there. I just don't
Yeah, Matt LaFleur playing copycat.
Hopefully it worked. I mean,
Because you got, like you said, man, they want to keep running the ball. So I guess they're thinking if we get some running backs and a fullback, we can keep the ball away from the 49ers if we play them again.
I was about to say, man, you can be the Rockets of the NBA where you building your team only for one team and they're gonna mess around and lose somebody else. That's what the Packers gonna do.
It happens all the time, man. You try to build for one team, but that team, you won't even get to play them because you be already out by the time you get a chance to play. You already be knocked out. So, I mean, it could happen, but yeah, Green Bay was definitely surprising.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a quick commercial break, and when we right back, we talk more football.
That's what's needed to get to that next level. I'm Rob Pennell, and I'm going to teach you how to be an offensive machine.
DrinkAid, ready for distribution worldwide.
All right, we are back. Let's see. Is there anybody else in the draft that you thought, aside from teams, but like value, you like, man, that's a good pick right there, or kind of like, okay, he supposed to go second round, he done fell to the fourth, and this team got a good steal because it's like where you go really depicts like how great your career is going to be. Like if we talking about like Sam Darnold, he don't have the weapons that Baker Mayfield has. Who knows if you swap him, how great Sam Darnold could be. So it's
right.
So with that being said, is there any players that you felt in this draft like, man, where he going, he gonna be something special?
Yeah, there's a pair of safeties actually that really stood out to me, and we've mentioned both of them before, but I'd love to talk about them a little bit more in depth. First of which being Grant Delpit out of LSU. He's somebody that was he was a like mid first round guy at the beginning of the 2019 season, and then just had he did not have a great 2019. Like, that's just the truth. Like, his tape was bad. He was dealing with injuries and everything as well. And he was also playing with a team that, was holding 5 touchdown leads all season. So, that defense wasn't out there trying for at least a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And everything. And so,
Bengal.
That's it, man. So you saw him drop, and as somebody that has watched him, every year that he was with LSU and all, you can look back at 2018 tape and you can find it, but you can't ignore what you saw in film in 2019. You just can't do that. So it wasn't surprising to me that he fell out of the first round. It was a little surprising to me that there were no safeties taken in the first round, because I thought at least maybe Xavier McKinney might pop into the first, particularly for Miami, who actually went with what was call him Noah I.
Noah, I didn't know.
I think Mahaney. But he was somebody that fell out, and then he goes to a team in the Cleveland Browns that can absolutely use what he does and who he is. Like, he's somebody that can play in the box, but that can also be a deep safety. They get him back there in a familiar situation, playing beside Greedy Williams, like Rashad mentioned earlier. Like, it's just it's a nice situation, for him to end up in. And I think that if there was any team that he was going to end up with outside of the first round, I really like the fit for where he landed with Cleveland, because it just puts him in a situation to where they're going to play a similar defensive style of ball than what LSU was playing in 2018, to where they're going to utilize him as somebody that can play all over the secondary, play, have that positional versatility and play all over the place, and just kind of let him go out there and play his game. And that's what he needs. And to be able to do it in a familiar circumstance where he's got a Jacob Phillips, he's got OBJ, he's got Juice, like, he's got all these people that are going to have his back. It's pretty dope. Like, it's pretty dope. The other safety that I'll mention is is Jeremy Chin. Him going to Carolina and playing in that Matt Rule defense is going to be a lot of fun to see him there. Carolina's been in need of secondary help for some time and everything, and so to be able to get a guy that can essentially serve two purposes for you, because you needed a boost in your secondary, but you also lost Luke Kuechly, who was a fantastic communicator. Jeremy Chin's not going to be your Luke Kuechly 100%, but he does serve a little bit of that role as being a very good communicator, a very smart player out on the field. So he kind of covers a little bit of both of those. And hell, if you need him to step into the box and play down in the front seven, he can do that too. You know what I'm saying? And so I like that. And then one other player that I'll mention who didn't drop, but is somebody that I was excited to see where he was going to go. And I heard a little bit about it happening the morning of, but I wasn't sure that it was really going to happen. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, going 32 overall in the first round, being running back 1 to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a fantastic fit for that team and that player. I'll leave it at that unless we want to discuss it more, but he's somebody I'm very excited about.
I'll tell you this. So when we did that, the mock draft with MTMV, remember the Chief, what was the name? Will.
Yeah.
He had to get a corner there, but remember we talked about the running back, and
right.
They kind of like, oh, we ain't getting a running back. I was like, Clyde, I'm trying to tell you, Clyde,
Clyde the Glide, baby.
But I mean, it's like Patrick Mahomes. He's getting blessed with all this talent around him. He already elite, and he don't need it, and he's just getting.
Man, the blessings just keep coming.
Too many weapons.
He got too many. You're right.
Right.
Rashad, you got any players that for the same question?
Yeah, I was just looking up to see what pick he went. I knew it was third round, but I wanted the exact pick. Josh Jones to the Arizona Cardinals, man, because he was graded by some people as a potential first round offensive tackle.
Yep. And
that was a need for the Cardinals. So I went and look it up, man. He was picked 72, man. The third round, that's a freaking steal for a need that you have. That is a steal. I think in our mock draft, we had our draft game and everything, and we were, first round, we throwing out Josh Jones' name, and this dude wasn't going off the board. Like we gotta go ahead and abort mission on him before we losing money messing with him.
Man, he lived in that Mel Kiper's
third round, man.
Yeah, that's wild. He lived in that Mel Kiper's best players available list for like a round, like he was there for a day.
That's crazy because we had Josh. I had Josh Jones going to I was like, well, if Minnesota don't go receiver corner, we might take a tackle. Josh Jones, when we traded down, like, dang, we might get Josh Jones. No, all right, Josh Jones here. Nope. Damn, when is that was unbelievable for the Cardinals, because I think he could be an instant starter right away, and for a guy that most people tagged as the first round guy, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Hearing that with Isaiah Simmons and get drafted.
Yeah, I got one more too.
Oh, and Isaiah Simmons. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, man.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I got one too. AF and going to the Bills, man. That was sneaky.
Oh, good choice. That's a good pick. Yeah.
He definitely shouldn't have been there. He's another guy.
Because like he was graded. Yeah, he was graded towards the end of the first round too. And he went almost back into the second. I think pick 54, 55. So the Bills getting AJ was pretty big too.
Yeah.
This is more of a hindsight view. I want to talk about like the Jets real quick. I think they had a great draft. When you talk about they fit all their needs. Now, whether you think that player is good enough, okay, that we can talk about that. But
sure,
they got Mekhi Becton at 11, and then I think at pick 59 you got Denzel Mims. Now, hindsight view, Rashad, you just mentioned your steal, Josh Jones. Do you think they should have flipped this? Now, you don't know how the draft is going to operate, but do you think they should have got one of the big three receivers, Ruggs, Judy, or Lamb, and then took a Josh Jones at 59? Or do you because to me, when you say those names before the NFL season, you say, man, the Jets really messed up. They could have got one of these guys and still got Josh Jones. But like you said, you don't know how the draft is going to shake out, and it just so happened that Josh Jones did fall. So in a hindsight view, which side would y'all rather have? What they actually did, or the potential what it could have been?
Go ahead first. I'm curious to hear what you got to say, and then I'll come through.
Yeah, just not knowing how it's going to shake out, I can't kill the Jets. I can't kill them because you don't know how it's going to shake out.
Yeah, I agree. For me, this was the right way to go because to me, the drop off between those top wide receivers to the like tier 2, tier 3 wide receivers is a much lesser drop off than the drop off from those top offensive tackles, those top 4 guys that were up there to the next tier. Not that Josh Jones is bad, but or by any means, but simply that, around pick 59, you knew that you were probably going to get, we sort of expected a potential Brandon Ayuk to end up being there, but he obviously went much earlier than than most people expected. But, you had a lot of those other wide receivers that were going to be there, especially drafting near the top of that round, or near the middle of that round and stuff. And so there's a lot of those wide receivers that were there that felt like, yeah, they won't be that much of a drop off. So let's go ahead, as much of a drop off as like tackle to tackle would be from that round, from first round to second round. And so I think that's one of my reasons why I would say, yeah, grab your top tackle. You can go ahead and draft all the receivers you want, but if they don't have that quarterback doesn't have an offensive line in front of them, you know what I'm saying? They ain't getting the ball. So let's settle the offensive line. And we'll add the weapon. That's right. Yeah. And then we'll add the weapons after that. And they did a great job with Denzel Mims, who I thought was going to go to Cincinnati at the top of the second. I thought that was going to be him. And apparently they were between him and Higgins.
I mean, I guess they kind of got the same kind of guys, size and speed with Higgins. So, I just thought the Jets draft was interesting because they got Bryce Hall later on too. He failed because of, probably mostly the injuries. I think that's why we're going to have a lot of quote unquote steals in this draft, because this is a different process. We never had the virtual draft. We never had where guys don't have the pro days and the medical scouts and stuff like that. So you couldn't really dive into the injuries and how they're doing. So I think that's why like you see all these value picks. Anybody with an injury history went later on down the line. Even for my Vikings, Jeff Gladney, like he had the knee injury after the combine. Surgery after the combine, and I'm not saying he failed, but Vikings were able to trade back and still get him. So it's
still got him. Yeah.
And the 2 corners with who I didn't think, Arnett with the Raiders and Noah Hakabadubadu. So
don't forget AJ Terrell. AJ Terrell went mad early too.
Yeah, so those 3 guys I didn't even have before Gladney on my board. So so maybe the injury had something to do with it. You never know.
Yep.
I know it's kind of like a homer hit, but I think the receivers in this class they were big steals. Like Judy going at 15, Lamb going at 18, and even Jefferson going to 22. Like, these are guys that, for those teams, should not have been on the board. There's no way Judy should have failed to 15. I did have Ruggs going as my first receiver. I thought maybe the 49ers or even the Jets, possibly. They had the option to. But Lamb going to Dallas, that's not fair. And he wearing number 88, so Jerry Jones already dubbed him the next best.
He made him take that number too, because Lamb was like, I want 10, and Jones said, nope, you get 88.
88 don't even look right in Lamb. I don't. He
saying.
Look right, because 88 really look like a power guy, like a power receiver to me.
Right.
I mean, but
it's a big body dude.
Irvin and Des Bryant come to mind right away.
Trying to get those jersey sales, man.
Make 88 relevant again. I guess that's a hashtag. But yeah, that one and Jefferson at 22, Vikings should never had. They shouldn't have got him. There's no way they should have had him at 22. They shouldn't have found their replacement for Diggs at 22.
Man,
Jefferson. Like if it was like Denzel Mims, you'd be like, maybe it's possible. Any other receiver besides the top 4, you wouldn't say, oh, that's a steal for the Vikings, a replacement for Diggs. But getting them, I mean, shout out to the Eagles for taking Rieger. So. But yeah, I think the receivers falling a little bit was definitely a steal.
Yeah, and I think that Justin Jefferson one in particular, like that's something that, man, Philly might not regret it because they get their guy that they want in Rager that can play on the outside, but they ended up doing it because of the fact that they didn't believe that Justin Jefferson can play on the outside, and he absolutely can. I mean, he didn't do it a ton, don't get me wrong, but when he did it, he was just as effective and just as productive as he was in the slot. And so I think that that's just a fantastic opportunity for Minnesota that I'm glad they didn't pass up to be like, he's still here. That's our guy.
We only got 10 minutes left. I kind of want to get your thoughts on the Last Dance so far and what we're looking for. Kamir Rashad, we talked about it, and we were saying, man, first it's all about Jordan. Then you had the Pippen story mixed with the Phil Jackson, and then this Rodman story. I think that's all great. And the previews, I think Horace Grant and Harper Story is coming up next.
Mhm.
So do you like the way the direction that they're going as far as back and forth, jumping back and forth, and what are your takeaways so far?
Yeah, I mean, I like the way that they're doing it so far because it is keeping it a little fresh, that you're kind of jumping around a little bit. You're not just following the one story, everything. Because I know that when I first heard about it, it felt like it was always being marketed as just a Michael Jordan documentary. And we were just going to talk about Michael Jordan in his final season. And maybe it's going to be more input from these other guys. But I love the fact that it feels a little bit more episodic in terms of you actually being able to take in some information in terms of how this worked for everyone and the things that they did to make it work. We were cracking jokes about Scottie Pippen before we hopped on about like, man, I'm just sad Scottie never got his money, at least from the Bulls and everything. And so, it was just, it was an interesting thing to be able to get it that way. And I like the fact that they've been bouncing around and getting it. But, my main takeaway is just simply that, like, I mean, I thought that we had drama in today's NBA. Man, that stuff is just wild. But I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it. And I'm loving the glimpse into it. I remember going to the IMAX when Michael Jordan's first IMAX movie came out. I don't know if y'all remember that, but I remember going on a school field trip. It was like, I went to school in the hood. We took one field trip. Every person got one field trip in their time at elementary school. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't one a year. We got one through K through 5. And they took us to go and see MJ. And that was just a super dope thing to be able to like sit in there and watch all that. And now I'm sitting down and like watching actual like story about him at this point, which I care more about, of course, at this point in my life. And so it's really dope. Like I'm loving the narrative of it. And I mean, look, in the midst of this, lockdown and quarantine and everything, it's it ended up being pretty well timed in terms of them deciding to release it when they did. So I'm appreciative of that. That's for certain.
Yeah, I mean, I have one thing. I'm just waiting on the part where Jerry Krause becomes the jerk because so far he's done everything right.
Right.
Like he's done everything right. You got Oakley out, brought in Cartwright. You select Kukoc. You brought in, you scouted Pippen. You scouted Horace Grant. You brought all these guys in. Ron Harper was a 25-5 guy. Was in Cleveland with the Clippers. Get him to the Bulls. Like I'm just waiting on the part. I mean, you scouted Phil Jackson, had him on the coaching staff. You got Tex Winter. So far, man, Jerry Krause, he's 6-0, 7-0 in my book. I'm waiting to see the part where Jerry Krause becomes the jerk. Like I need to see that because right now he is. I mean, he like Drake, man. He can't miss. That's for the married folks.
That's funny.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the Horace Grant story because, see, I am a very adamant believer that everybody want to say it. I can't agree with it that the Bulls would have won 8 straight. I do not believe it because Horace Grant and Rodman were so vital in those championship runs, and they were not on the team those 2 years when Jordan stepped away and came back. And I was like, I want to see the Horace Grant. I think they're going to portray him as like a little villain a little bit because where the preview was going because he wanted to shine and
right.
Horace Grant was. I mean, he was a great player. I mean, obviously you're not in that same light when you're under Michael Jordan, and even Scottie Pippen. So and I think that when you look at all the 30 for 30s, like the Magic moment, the Knicks versus Pacers, even the Magic Celtics, like all that stuff are intertwined with this Bulls documentary. And you'd be like, man, I remember this right here. Horace Grant go to the Magic, and that's why the Bulls couldn't beat him. So it's kind of like. Without Michael, but it's like kind of like I want to see Horace Grant and his story, and Rashad mentioned the Ron Harper one. It's like, man, these guys were vital pieces, and I also want to see the Kukoc story if they have one where they went to go get him from, where he's from, Croatia, Serbia, one somewhere. But the Dream Team part where they was dogging Kukoc. Oh, but come on, play with the Bulls though. Like we hate you, but come on to the Bulls. So I want to see that part too.
He wanted to rebuild. They weren't having it, man.
Kukoc, hey, they were shutting out Kukoc. They said, Jordan and Pippen, you're not about to beat us out here. We're gonna show you something. But after this game though, you come on to the Bulls so we can go 3-peat. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, Rashad, you're right about that Krause thing. Like as a GM, we have all the same philosophies, except for the Phil Jackson part. Phil Jackson would have stayed. But everything else, man. See, and then another thing. I know that they kind of skipped over the Scottie Pippen part, like him coming back to the team. Like they kind of like they kind of just got rid. Like they led us into it. as a cliffhanger, and then starting episode 3, they just say, "Oh, Scottie Pippen's back now." Okay,
Right.
I guess
Cool.
I would have failed as a GM because I would have traded Scottie Pippen as soon as he said he want to go.
Want to go? Yeah.
All right, let's go. Get you out of here, man.
I don't know, man. You can't let Scotty go, man. But Krause's alpha talent is crazy, man. Because even think about like once they blew it up, he drafted Ron Artest, Tyson Chandler, Jamal Crawford. He had he liked Trace McGrady a lot. So I mean, of course, you got your misses with your Eddie Curry stuff like that. But dude, yeah, Heinrich, like he missed with Eddie Curry and maybe a few others. But for the most part, Jerry Krause has a keen alpha talent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give him a pass with Eddie Curry because honestly, it was a lot of misses with the high school guys.
He drafted Elton Brand too.
He had at one point he had like 4 centers on the roster, like first round picks. He kind of was tripping a little bit.
He was really stacking centers like the Bears stack tight ends, man. Like it was a lot.
They got like 20. Copycat City right there. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Yeah, you're right, Rashad, about that when Krause is going to mess up part, and I just the drama part you mentioned, Ross, is like, wow, like all this was going on, and it's crazy how social media would like if you just pick the Bulls up and drop them today.
Yo, imagine.
First of all, Jerry Krause probably
man.
Right, Jerry Krause would have been fired. Scottie Pippen probably would have gotten traded because he would have been on Twitter talking about how he wants out.
Right.
Like he'd have been Yannick Ngakweing all the time.
That's true.
Like, man, it would have been wild different. Like it would have been mad different because nothing would have been behind closed doors.
Nah, nope. And then I mean, the only people that you would have Michael Jordan would have said some crazy stuff that kept the media going, like, kind of like LeBron and Kevin Durant and all them guys do. They say something and we spin it and take it off somewhere else. Like it would have been, oh, Jordan wants to do this, and you know, he probably. If we picked it up, even in like the 80s, like he probably would have demanded a trade, like in 84, 85 when they was losing and the GM want to bench him and not play him minimum restriction, he'd have been out of there.
Oof, quick,
And
with the quickness.
I mean, I just think that's crazy how social media is going crazy and how it really affects everything, you know, from the past to now. And I know the way of thinking when we look at stuff, that's why we were so hyped on the Pippen contract, because like, dang, he's only making that much, but at the time,
yeah,
I mean, that's really all you could. I mean, as far as, you know, top money, I mean, he fought the years, Scotty tripping on that, but as far as like $2 or $3 million, that was the highest paid players, and now Otto Porter make more than all of them combined. Like it's ridiculous. In Chicago, ridiculous. Man.
Oh man.
it was trash.
You're right. And didn't Ron Harper make as much as MJ on the same, like when he was in LA?
Yep.
I mean, he was
It's crazy.
Yeah, it was $4 million.
Max, that Max contract, Superman.
Yeah. That Jordan Supermax was like, we'll give you $3
million. That's it.
We'll give you $3 million to come through.
That's funny as hell. Did y'all see the LeBron James talk about the season? He went just like that. He killed a report just like that. Imagine Jordan be like, "I'm not retiring," or it's killed. I just thought, man, this whole documentary is crazy. And like I said, I love that it all intertwines. It's kind of like you need to watch all of them at the same time to be like, oh, that's, you know. We talk about Jordan losing to the Pistons early in his career, the bad boys, how they fell off, and then you got Jordan the whole time. But we had this whole documentary on the Pacers and Knicks. They never talked about the next stage getting swept by Jordan. They didn't talk about that part. That was pretty funny. But I appreciate you for joining us, man. That's all the time we have. About a good 30 seconds left. Ross, let everybody know where they can find you at.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. It's such a pleasure to join you guys, man. Hope to be able to do it again here soon. Had a blast with y'all during the MTMV mock draft, and so it meant a lot to be able to come back here and chop it up with you guys some more. If y'all are interested, you can follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola, Nola. Y'all know I'm mad annoying about where I'm from. I represent New Orleans every way that I can, so I had to throw it in the Twitter handle. You can check out the Locked On podcast, Locked On Saints podcast, of course, every single Monday through Friday, fresh episodes about everything going on with your New Orleans Saints, and of course, you can catch all the writing as well over at CanalStreetChronicles.com. My brothers, thank you very much, man. Y'all stay safe.
Appreciate it, man. All right, preach, Gary, preach.
We're glad to have you, bro. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Rashad, man. Appreciate you joining us, man.